a number of years ago, I did a series called The Mothers of Jesus in and around Mother's Day. So if you look at Matthew's genealogy, he lists 5 women in Jesus' genealogy, which would have been unheard of back then because your genealogy was kind of like your resume. And so women had a devalued status. And so you would never put women in your genealogy. It's very father-centric. And Jesus in Matthew's gospel has 5 women listed in his genealogy. But do you guys know some of the women that are listed? Obviously, the first one is Jesus' own mother,
Mary.
who is Mary. By the way, let me just give a little historical information as we cover each woman. So the first one is Mary, and she conceived Jesus as an unwed teenage mother. Unwed teenage mother conceived in conception the Savior of the whole world, the Son of God himself. So if people say, well, I screwed up and I did some things and I had babies when I shouldn't have, whatever. God saved the world through an unwed teenage mother. So we have a God who takes things that maybe or wasn't the best situation. And in this instance, specifically with Mary, turned it into a cosmic universe altering event we know as the gospel. So Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Rahab is also in the list. Rahab was a prostitute. So you have an unwed teenage mother, prostitute. Who else is listed?
Bathsheba?
Yes, Bathsheba, but Matthew does not refer to her as Bathsheba. He calls her Uriah's wife, the wife of Uriah. And so if you just said Bathsheba, you would naturally think, oh yeah, Solomon's mom, King Solomon's mom, David's wife. But when you say the wife of Uriah, you hearken back to that instance where David committed adultery with Bathsheba and murdered Bathsheba's husband. It's not a slight at Bathsheba, it's a slight at David. And so when you say the wife of Uriah, that whole murderous, adulterous incident comes back to mind. So far we have an unwed teenage mother, a prostitute, and a woman who committed adultery and married the guy who murdered her first husband.
Right. Yes.
Number 4.
Is it Ruth?
Ruth is number. You're doing well. Number 4 is Ruth, who was a Moabite.
Right.
And the Moabites came from the line of Lot after he had sex with his daughters.
Yep.
So she's a foreigner from a nation that's born out of repulsive sexual incest. So that's Tamar, or excuse me, Ruth. And then I just gave you the 5th one.
Yeah.
Is Tamar. Yeah. And Tamar had sex with her father-in-law, unknown to him, but still it happened, named Judah. Yeah. And out of that, they had a baby named Perez, and Jesus is in the direct line. So there's your women. You have an unwed teenage mother, prostitute, woman who married a man who murdered her first husband and committed adultery with. You have someone who is a foreigner and the product of incest, Ruth. And then finally you have a woman who slept with her father-in-law and tricked him and had a baby. Those are Jesus' 5 women. And so even in the genealogy of Jesus, you could tell very similar stories with the men in that line too. Judah is one of them. David's another one, right? So it's not exclusive to the ladies. But the point that the genealogy is making is that even, we used to call it the genealogy of Jesus in seminary, the phone book of the Bible. It's boring. So-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so. Even the phone book of the Bible is dripping with God's grace on how he saves and redeems lives that look lost and look as if there's nothing good about them. The gospel of Jesus Christ is even penetrating through his genealogy, through the phone book of the Bible. You have the gospel of grace already. It's just gorgeous. So that's a great Mother's Day, I think, lesson for all, not lesson, good gospel truth for all moms. Those five women too, which is really fascinating, had no idea that through those crazy, horrible, wild, nasty episodes, that God was indirectly working through all of them to bring about the birth of the Savior of the world. We forget that. That these are stories that are like, oh yeah, that's interesting, that's gross, that's amazing. This is God. These are the people that God chose to bring about the salvation of the whole world. The perfect one, Jesus Christ, comes out of all that imperfection and sin and nastiness and regret and pain and depression and murder. Good night. I mean, it's unreal.
And it's a good reminder, I feel like, for all of us that he can use us in that same way, doing powerful things for him and for his glory, because he works in such unexpected ways with unexpected people.
Yeah, it shows two things. Number one, no one's beyond salvation.
Yep.
That is saving first.
Right.
And then second of all, no one's beyond God's utilization of them or using their life. You're never beyond salvation. If our God came in the flesh and Luther said was thrown into a dung heap, that's his language for the cross. He went down into the crap of this world. If Jesus went into hell, if Jesus went into the darkest, nastiest, worst, utterly unimaginable place to save us, there's literally not one place on earth he's not willing to go to get you. Isn't that cool? So even in the midst of, late at night in your house, when I'm done, I'm giving up, there's no place that God's not willing to go. Now, see, that's the difference between gospel-centered and self-salvation. When it's self-salvation, it's you get yourself out of the dark. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you get it together, get out of the dark, get to God who's in the light. And the gospel is the God who is all light descended into the utter dark, into the darkest places to get us. Not that we could get ourselves out of the dark, but he went into the dark to get us. This is good stuff.